The doctor wrote on a prescription pad, "Don't go home, run," and slipped it to me during my routine checkup. That night, I discovered my husband and my own daughter had been slowly poisoning me for 6 months to steal my $3 million inheritance. My name is Dr. Vanessa Washington, and I'm 62 years old. I spent 35 years as a head nurse at Metropolitan Hospital, retiring with a substantial pension and life insurance payout after my first husband died. 6 months ago, I remarried Marcus Hayes, 15 years younger, charming, and everything my late husband Robert had been in our early years. I thought I was lucky to find love again at my age. I had no idea I had married my executioner. The symptoms started 3 weeks after our honeymoon: nausea, fatigue, hair loss, stomach pain. I blamed stress, grief, age, everything except the truth. My own medical training should have recognized arsenic poisoning immediately. But when you trust someone with your life, you don't suspect them of trying to take it. The warning came from Dr. Patricia Chen, my longtime physician and former colleague. During a routine blood pressure check, she ran additional tests without telling me why. When the results came back, she handed me that prescription pad. "Don't go home, run!" "Patricia, what are you talking about?" "Vanessa, your blood work shows chronic arsenic exposure. Someone has been poisoning you systematically." "That's impossible. Who would want to poison me?" "Someone with access to your food and drinks, someone who benefits from your death." The implications hit me like a truck. Marcus made my morning coffee every day. My daughter Simone cooked dinner twice a week, always insisting on serving me personally. "How long do I have?" "If the exposure continues, maybe 2 months. But if you go home tonight, you might not live through the week." I left Patricia's office with chelation medication and instructions to tell no one where I was going. But I didn't run. Instead, I checked into a hotel under a false name and started planning the most medically precise revenge of my nursing career. Marcus and Simone thought they were slowly killing a trusting wife and mother. They had no idea they were trying to murder a woman who understood exactly how poison works, how bodies fail, and how to make death look natural. If they wanted to play with medicine, I was going to show them what 35 years in a hospital had taught me about the thin line between life and death. The prescription pad that saved my life was about to become their death warrant. I spent my first night in the hotel room analyzing everything that had happened over the past 6 months. The timeline was horrifyingly clear once I looked at it with medical eyes instead of trusting ones. Marcus and I had married in March. By April, I was experiencing stress-related digestive issues. By May, my beautiful thick hair was falling out in clumps that Marcus attributed to hormonal changes. In June, I developed a persistent rash that Marcus said was probably an allergic reaction to my new laundry detergent. In July, my hands started trembling, which he blamed on too much caffeine. Every symptom I'd experienced was textbook arsenic poisoning. And I, a trained medical professional, had dismissed every single one because my husband had reasonable explanations. But the most damning evidence was my routine blood work from my annual physical in February, just 1 month before I married Marcus. Perfect health, normal liver function, normal kidney function, normal everything. 6 months later, my organs were shutting down. I called Patricia from my hotel room. "Patricia, I need you to run a comparison between my February blood work and yesterday's results." "Vanessa, where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm safe. Just run the comparison." 10 minutes later, she called back with results that made my blood run cold. "Vanessa, your liver enzymes are 8 times higher than they were in February. Your kidney function has decreased by 30%. Your white blood cell count suggests your immune system is failing. How much arsenic are we talking about?" "Enough to kill you slowly, but not enough to trigger immediate suspicion. Someone with medical knowledge is doing this." Someone with medical knowledge. My daughter Simone was a pharmacy technician. She understood medications, dosages, and drug interactions, and she had access to everything she'd need. "Patricia, I need you to do something for me. I need you to test my hair follicles from 6 months ago." "Your hair follicles?" "I saved hair from my brush before the wedding. It's in my jewelry box. I need to know if the poisoning started before or after I married Marcus. Vanessa, why does the timeline matter? Because if it started before the wedding, this was premeditated murder, not opportunistic greed. I gave Patricia my spare house key and the location of the hair samples. 2 hours later, she called with results that shattered what was left of my heart. Vanessa, the hair from 6 months ago shows trace amounts of arsenic. What does that mean? It means someone started poisoning you before your wedding. This has been planned for at least 8 months. 8 months. Marcus had been courting me, proposing to me, and slowly poisoning me simultaneously. But that wasn't the worst revelation. Patricia, there's something else. I found receipts in your house. What kind of receipts? Pharmacy receipts in Simone's name. She's been buying large quantities of stomach medications, iron supplements, and other drugs that would help mask arsenic symptoms. My own daughter hadn't just been helping to poison me. She'd been managing my symptoms to keep me alive long enough to maximize their inheritance. How long have the receipts been going on? 10 months, Vanessa. Simone started buying these medications 2 months before you met Marcus. The room started spinning. Simone had introduced me to Marcus at her birthday party. She'd encouraged the relationship, pushed me to remarry quickly, and insisted on being heavily involved in our wedding planning. My daughter had set up my own murder. Patricia, I need copies of everything. Medical records, test results, receipts, hair analysis, everything. What are you planning to do? I'm planning to give Marcus and Simone exactly what they've been giving me. Vanessa, you can't be serious. They tried to murder me for money, Patricia. They've been slowly killing me for almost a year. But you're talking about revenge killing. I'm talking about justice. And I'm talking about making sure they never do this to anyone else. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the hotel bathroom mirror. 6 months ago, I'd been a healthy, vibrant woman starting a new chapter of my life. Now I looked like a cancer patient. My skin was gray, my hair was thin, my hands shook constantly. Marcus and Simone had stolen my health, my trust, and nearly my life. It was time to return the favor. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Janet, I need to make some changes to my will. What kind of changes, Vanessa? I want to add a codicil that if I die under suspicious circumstances, my entire estate goes to charity instead of my beneficiaries. That's unusual. Is everything all right? Everything's fine. I just want to make sure my assets go where they'll do the most good. After I hung up with Janet, I called my bank. I'd like to withdraw $50,000 in cash, please. That's quite a large withdrawal, Dr. Washington. May I ask what it's for? Medical expenses. I'll be in this afternoon. The final call was to a specialty pharmacy that catered to research hospitals. I need to place an order for some compounds. I'll need overnight delivery. What kind of compounds? I gave them a list of chemicals that would be completely undetectable in routine blood work, but would cause exactly the symptoms Marcus and Simone had been giving me. The difference was, my version would work much faster. And unlike my poisoners, I knew exactly how to calculate dosages for maximum effectiveness. That evening, I returned to my house for the first time in 2 days. Marcus rushed to greet me with concern that would have been touching if I didn't know it was fake. Baby, where have you been? I was worried sick. I had to stay at the hospital. They wanted to run more tests on my condition. What did they find? They think it might be stress-related. The doctor recommended I try to relax more, spend more time at home. That's wonderful news. I was so afraid it might be something serious. Simone arrived an hour later with groceries for dinner. Mom, you look terrible. Are you eating enough? I haven't had much appetite lately. Well, I'm making your favorite tonight. My special chicken soup. Special chicken soup. The same soup she'd been making twice a week for months, always insisting I eat multiple bowls. That sounds perfect, honey. But first, let me make us all some drinks. I went to the kitchen and prepared 3 glasses of iced tea. In Marcus's glass, I added a compound that would cause severe nausea and vomiting within hours. In Simone's glass, I added something that would trigger painful stomach cramps and diarrhea. In my own glass, I added nothing but ice. Here's to family, I said, raising my glass. To family, they replied, drinking deeply. Within 4 hours, both Marcus and Simone were violently ill. "I think we might have food poisoning," Marcus groaned from the bathroom. "Maybe we should go to the hospital," Simone suggested weakly. "Let's wait and see how you feel in the morning," I replied, playing the concerned wife and mother. Sometimes these things just need to run their course. But I knew they wouldn't feel better in the morning. Because unlike their slow, months-long poisoning of me, my revenge was going to be swift, obvious, and absolutely devastating. Marcus and Simone had tried to murder me slowly. I was going to destroy them quickly. And by the time they realized what was happening to them, it would be far too late to save themselves. The next morning, I found Marcus collapsed in our bedroom, barely able to stand. "Vanessa, something's really wrong. I can't keep anything down, and my vision is blurry." "Let me take your temperature," I said, playing the dutiful nurse wife. His fever was 102, his pulse was rapid and weak, and his pupils were dilated. Textbook signs of the compound I'd given him. "Maybe you caught a stomach bug," I suggested. "Why don't you rest today? I'll take care of everything." Simone called an hour later, her voice barely a whisper. "Mom, I'm really sick. Can you come over?" "Of course, honey. I'll be right there." I drove to Simone's apartment and found her in the same condition as Marcus, feverish, vomiting, and increasingly disoriented. "I think I need to go to the hospital," she said weakly. "Let's give it another day," I replied. "Sometimes the best thing for food poisoning is to let your body fight it naturally." "But Mom, I feel like I'm dying." The irony was delicious. For months, they had been making me feel like I was dying. Now they knew exactly how that felt. "I'll stay with you today and monitor your symptoms," I said. "If you're not better by tomorrow, we'll consider medical attention." But I knew they wouldn't be better tomorrow. The compounds I'd given them had a cumulative effect, getting stronger with each passing hour. That afternoon, while Simone dozed fitfully, I searched her apartment. In her bedroom closet, I found a box containing everything I needed to destroy them both. Detailed notes about arsenic dosages and symptoms, research printouts about inheritance laws and life insurance policies. And most damning of all, a timeline showing exactly when they planned for me to die. According to their notes, I had about 3 weeks left before the arsenic levels in my system would cause fatal organ failure. They had been planning to comfort each other through my tragic illness and split my inheritance 60-40, with Marcus getting the larger share for being my husband. But the most horrifying discovery was a series of text messages between Marcus and Simone from the past 10 months. "Mom's looking weaker. Up the dose next week. She's getting suspicious about the coffee. Switch to putting it in her vitamins. How much longer? This is taking forever. Patience. We need it to look natural. Another month should do it." They hadn't just been poisoning me. They'd been documenting every step of my murder like a medical experiment. I photographed every piece of evidence, every note, every text message. Then I called Patricia. "I need you to meet me tonight and bring everything we discussed." "Vanessa, what are you doing?" "I'm finishing what they started." That evening, Patricia arrived at my house with a medical bag and a very worried expression. "Vanessa, I can't be part of whatever you're planning." "You're not part of anything. You're treating a patient who's been systematically poisoned by her family." "But Marcus and Simone are experiencing the consequences of their choices, just like they wanted me to experience the consequences of trusting them." Patricia examined Marcus, who was now running a fever of 104 and hallucinating. "Vanessa, he needs immediate medical attention. Give him something to bring the fever down, but don't call an ambulance. Not yet. This is medical malpractice." "Patricia, these people have been murdering me for 10 months. They documented every dose of poison they gave me. They planned my funeral while serving me dinner." I showed her the evidence I'd found in Simone's apartment. Patricia read through the notes and text messages, her face growing pale. "My God, Vanessa, they were going to kill you." "They were killing me. The only difference is now they're experiencing what they put me through. But what you're doing to them, what I'm doing to them, is giving them a taste of their own medicine. Literally. Vanessa, you could go to prison for this." They could have gone to prison for trying to murder me, but they chose to commit the crime. I'm just choosing the punishment. Patricia left that night without calling for medical help, though I could see the conflict in her eyes. She understood that Marcus and Simone were getting exactly what they deserved, but her medical training made it hard for her to watch anyone suffer. My nursing training had no such limitations. I had spent 35 years watching people die from preventable causes, watching families destroy each other over money, watching predators prey on the vulnerable. Marcus and Simone weren't patients to me. They were problems that needed to be solved, and I was very good at solving medical problems. By dawn, both of them were in critical condition. It was time to move to the final phase of my treatment plan. On the third day of their illness, I made a decision that would seal Marcus and Simone's fate forever. I called 911. My husband and daughter are both critically ill. I think they might have been poisoned. The paramedics arrived within minutes, finding Marcus unconscious and Simone barely responsive. "Ma'am, what symptoms have they been experiencing?" the lead paramedic asked. "Severe nausea, vomiting, fever, disorientation. It started 2 days ago after we all had dinner together. Are you experiencing any symptoms?" "No, I feel fine. I'm worried they might have gotten into something toxic." As they loaded Marcus and Simone into separate ambulances, I played the role of the devastated wife and mother perfectly. "Please save them. They're all I have left." But as the ambulances drove away, I was already planning the next phase of my revenge. At the hospital, I sat in the waiting room while doctors ran tests on my would-be murderers. Dr. Michael Roberts, the attending physician, approached me after 2 hours. "Mrs. Hayes, we've run extensive blood work on both patients. What did you find?" "They've both been poisoned with a combination of compounds that are causing severe organ distress. Without immediate treatment, they could die." "Poisoned? How is that possible?" "The compounds in their systems are highly specialized. This wasn't accidental exposure. Someone with medical knowledge did this deliberately." I let shock and horror wash over my face. "Are you saying someone tried to murder my family?" "That's exactly what I'm saying." "Mrs. Hayes, we need to contact the police immediately." "Of course. Whatever you need to do to find who did this to them." Detective Sarah Martinez arrived within the hour. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who specialized in poisoning cases. "Mrs. Hayes, I need to ask you some questions about the past few days. Anything to help find who hurt my family." "When did you first notice they were sick?" 2 days ago. We had dinner together, and within hours they were both violently ill." "What did you eat for dinner?" "Simone made her special chicken soup. She's been making it for me twice a week since I've been feeling poorly." Detective Martinez made notes. "You've been feeling poorly?" "For months. Nausea, fatigue, hair loss. My doctor thinks it might be stress-related." "Have you been tested for poisoning?" This was the moment I'd been waiting for. "Actually, yes. My doctor ran some tests last week and found traces of arsenic in my system." Detective Martinez looked up sharply. "Arsenic?" She thinks someone has been poisoning me too, but very slowly, much more gradually than what happened to Marcus and Simone. "Who has access to your food and drinks?" "Well, Marcus makes my coffee every morning, and Simone cooks for me twice a week." The detective's expression changed as she processed the implications. "Mrs. Hayes, are you saying your husband and daughter might have been poisoning you?" I don't want to believe that. "But the timing is suspicious, isn't it? I've been getting sicker for months, and now they're both critically ill from a different kind of poisoning. We'll need to test your blood and compare it to theirs." "Of course. I want to know the truth, no matter how horrible it might be." 3 hours later, Detective Martinez returned with lab results that confirmed my carefully constructed narrative. "Mrs. Hayes, I have difficult news. Your blood shows chronic arsenic poisoning that's been going on for approximately 10 months. 10 months? But that's when you started dating your husband, according to your statement." I let tears form in my eyes. "Are you saying Marcus has been trying to kill me?" "It appears that way. And your daughter's involvement in preparing your meals suggests she was complicit. But why would they want to hurt me? How much do you stand to inherit, Mrs. Hayes?" "I don't understand." "How much money do you have? Life insurance, property, investments?" "About $3 million, I suppose. But I thought Marcus loved me for who I am, Not what I have. Detective Martinez's expression hardened. Mrs. Hayes, we found evidence in your daughter's apartment that suggests this was a planned murder for financial gain. She showed me photographs of the evidence I had already seen. The notes, the timeline, the text messages between Marcus and Simone. They've been documenting your murder like a medical experiment, she continued. According to their notes, you had about 3 weeks left before the arsenic levels would have killed you. I collapsed into a chair, playing the devastated victim perfectly. My own daughter wanted me dead? I'm afraid so. But Mrs. Hayes, there's something else we need to discuss. What? The compounds that poisoned your husband and daughter, they're not commonly available. Someone with advanced medical knowledge acquired and administered them. I felt a chill of fear. Was Detective Martinez suspecting me? What does that mean? It means whoever did this to them knew exactly what they were doing. The dosages were calculated to cause maximum suffering without immediate death. So someone wanted them to suffer? Someone wanted revenge, and they wanted it to be slow and painful. Detective Martinez studied my face carefully. Mrs. Hayes, you're a retired nurse with 35 years of experience. You would know how to obtain and administer compounds like these. My heart pounded, but I maintained my innocent expression. Are you accusing me of poisoning my own family? I'm investigating all possibilities. You've been the victim of attempted murder, but you're also the only person with the medical knowledge and motive to poison Marcus and Simone. Detective, if I wanted to hurt them, why would I call 911? Why would I bring them to the hospital where doctors could save them? Maybe because you wanted them to suffer publicly. Maybe because you wanted everyone to know what they tried to do to you. I stood up, letting righteous anger fill my voice. Detective Martinez, my husband and daughter tried to murder me for money. They spent 10 months slowly poisoning me while pretending to love me. If someone gave them a taste of their own medicine, frankly, I think it's poetic justice. So you admit you might have done this? I admit that I'm glad it happened, but I didn't do it. Then who did? I paused as if thinking, then pulled out my phone. Detective, I want you to call Dr. Patricia Chen. She's been treating me for the arsenic poisoning. What about her? She was horrified when she discovered what Marcus and Simone were doing to me. She said someone should make them pay for their crimes. Detective Martinez wrote down Patricia's number. You're suggesting your doctor might have poisoned them? I'm suggesting that someone with medical knowledge wanted justice for what they did to me. And Dr. Chen was very, very angry about their attempted murder. It was a perfect deflection. Patricia had the medical knowledge, access to compounds, and clear motive to revenge my attempted murder. And she had visited my house the night before Marcus and Simone became critically ill. Mrs. Hayes, if Dr. Chen did this, you could be charged as an accessory. How could I be an accessory to something I didn't know was going to happen? By providing information and access. Detective Dr. Chen saved my life by discovering the arsenic poisoning. If she decided to take justice into her own hands, that was her choice, not mine. Detective Martinez made more notes, clearly building a case against Patricia, but there was one more card I needed to play. Detective, there's something else you should know about Marcus and Simone. What? This isn't their first time doing this. What do you mean? I pulled out research I'd compiled over the past 3 days. I've been looking into Marcus's background since I found out about the poisoning. His first wife died of mysterious illness 2 years ago. The death was ruled natural causes, but she had similar symptoms to what I've been experiencing. Detective Martinez took the papers and studied them. You think your husband murdered his previous wife? I think Marcus is a serial killer who targets wealthy older women. And I think Simone helps him do it. Do you have proof? I have enough circumstantial evidence to suggest a pattern. Marcus marries wealthy widows, slowly poisons them with help from someone with medical knowledge, and inherits their estates. And you think Simone is his accomplice in multiple murders? I think my daughter is a lot more dangerous than anyone realizes. Detective Martinez looked through my fabricated evidence with growing alarm. Mrs. Hayes, if this is true, you were almost the victim of serial killers. And now those serial killers are fighting for their lives in the ICU. Whoever poisoned them might have saved other potential victims. Exactly. Detective, I know you have to investigate this thoroughly. but I hope you'll consider that Marcus and Simone are dangerous criminals who were planning to murder me in 3 weeks. I'll take that into consideration." As Detective Martinez left to interview Patricia, I smiled grimly. I had successfully painted myself as the innocent victim and Patricia as the avenging angel doctor. Meanwhile, Marcus and Simone lay dying in hospital beds, finally experiencing the slow, agonizing death they had planned for me. But my revenge was just getting started. The real justice was going to come when they woke up and realized that everyone knew exactly what they had tried to do. Their reputations, their freedom, and their lives were all going to be destroyed by their own greed. And I was going to watch every moment of their downfall. Later that evening, Detective Martinez returned with news that made my victory even sweeter. "Mrs. Hayes, we've arrested Dr. Patricia Chen." I gasped in perfectly performed shock. "Patricia? She poisoned them?" "She confessed. She said she couldn't stand by and watch them murder you slowly, so she decided to give them a dose of their own medicine. I can't believe Patricia would do something like that. She says she has no regrets. She called Marcus and Simone predators who deserved to experience what they were putting you through." Poor Patricia. She was taking the blame for my revenge, probably thinking she was protecting me. Will she go to prison? That depends on whether Marcus and Simone survive. If they die, she'll face murder charges. If they live, it'll be attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon. And what about Marcus and Simone? Will they face charges for trying to kill me? Absolutely. We have enough evidence to charge them with conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, and fraud. If they survive the poisoning, they'll spend decades in prison. If they survive, Mrs. Hayes, they're both in critical condition. The compounds Dr. Chen used are causing severe organ damage. Even if they live, they'll likely have permanent health problems. Permanent health problems, just like they had planned for me in the final weeks before my death. Detective, I know this sounds horrible, but part of me hopes they experience exactly what they were going to put me through. I understand that feeling, Mrs. Hayes. They tried to murder you for money. Most people would want revenge. I just want justice. Well, you're getting it. Even if Marcus and Simone recover, their lives are destroyed. The evidence we found in Simone's apartment shows premeditated murder conspiracy. They'll never be free again. That night, I sat by Marcus's hospital bed, holding his hand while he lay unconscious. The nurses thought I was being a devoted wife, keeping vigil over my poisoned husband. They had no idea I was savoring every moment of his suffering. "Can you hear me, Marcus?" I whispered when we were alone. "I know what you and Simone were doing to me." His eyes flickered beneath his closed lids, but he remained unconscious. "The arsenic you've been feeding me for 10 months, I know about all of it. The coffee, the vitamins, the carefully calculated doses designed to kill me slowly." I leaned closer to his ear. "But here's what you don't know, darling. I'm the one who poisoned you." Marcus's vital signs spiked on the monitors, suggesting he could hear me even in his unconscious state. "That's right. Your loving wife gave you exactly what you've been giving me. The only difference is, I made it work faster." His breathing became more labored. "And the beautiful part is, everyone thinks Patricia did it. She's going to prison for my revenge, and you're going to prison for trying to murder me. Assuming you survive, of course." I squeezed his hand harder. "You see, Marcus, you made one crucial mistake. You tried to poison a woman who understands medicine better than you do." The heart monitor showed increasing distress. Simone made the same mistake. She thought having access to pharmacy supplies made her smart enough to commit murder. But pharmacy technicians learn just enough to be dangerous, not enough to be careful. I stood up and smoothed my dress, preparing to leave. "Sweet dreams, darling. I hope you dream about all the women you've killed over the years, because when you wake up, you're going to face justice for every single one of them." I walked across the hall to Simone's room, where my daughter lay connected to machines that were keeping her alive. "Hello, baby girl," I said softly, sitting beside her bed. Simone's eyes opened slightly, unfocused, but aware. "Mom?" she whispered weakly. "Yes, honey. I'm here. I'm so sick. What's happening to me?" "You're experiencing the same thing you've been doing to me for 10 months, sweetheart." Simone's eyes focused with difficulty. What? The arsenic, Simone. I know about all of it. The timeline you and Marcus created, the text messages planning my death, the inheritance you were going to split. Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me anymore, baby. I found everything in your apartment. The notes, the research, the medications you were using to manage my symptoms. Tears formed in Simone's eyes. Mom, please. I'm dying. No more than I was dying when you were poisoning me twice a week. But I'm your daughter, and you tried to murder your mother for money. I leaned forward so she could see my face clearly. Simone, do you know what the worst part of this whole thing is? She shook her head weakly. The worst part is that I actually loved Marcus. I thought I'd found happiness again after your stepfather died, but you convinced me to marry a serial killer so you could help him murder me. Mom, it wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? Were you planning to comfort me during my final weeks? Were you going to hold my hand while the arsenic destroyed my liver? We needed the money. I would have given you money. All you had to do was ask. Not $3 million. So you decided murder was easier than getting a job? Simone closed her eyes, too weak to continue the conversation. Well, baby girl, you're about to learn that murder has consequences. Even if you survive this, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. I kissed her forehead gently. And every day you're in prison, I want you to remember that you brought this on yourself. As I left the hospital that night, I felt a deep satisfaction that had been missing from my life for months. Marcus and Simone were fighting for their lives, facing the same slow, agonizing death they had planned for me. Patricia was in jail, but she would probably get a reduced sentence for helping catch attempted murderers. And I was free, healthy, and $3 million richer than my would-be killers had expected. The next morning brought news that completed my revenge. Dr. Roberts called at 6 a.m. Mrs. Hayes, I need to inform you about your husband and daughter's condition. How are they doing? Marcus slipped into a coma during the night. His organs are shutting down. Even if he survives, he'll likely have permanent brain damage. And Simone. She's conscious, but her kidney function is failing. She'll need dialysis for the rest of her life. Permanent brain damage for Marcus. Lifetime dialysis for Simone. They would both live, but they would never be healthy again, just like they had planned for me. Doctor, will they be able to stand trial for trying to murder me? Eventually, but Marcus may not be mentally competent to assist in his own defense. What does that mean? It means he might spend the rest of his life in a medical facility for the criminally insane. Perfect. Marcus would live out his days as a brain-damaged prisoner, unable to enjoy the money he'd tried to steal from me. And Simone would spend decades in prison, hooked to a dialysis machine, paying the price for betraying her own mother. The woman who had written, "Don't go home, run," on that prescription pad had saved my life. But I had saved my own soul by making sure Marcus and Simone faced justice for their crimes. Sometimes the best revenge isn't running away from danger. Sometimes it's turning the danger back on the people who created it, and watching them destroy themselves with their own poison. 3 days later, the confrontation I'd been waiting for finally came. Detective Martinez arrived at my house at 8 a.m. with news that changed everything. Mrs. Hayes, we need to talk. New evidence has come to light. What kind of evidence? Evidence that suggests Dr. Chen might not have acted alone. My blood ran cold, but I maintained my innocent expression. What do you mean? We found surveillance footage from the hospital parking garage. The night before Marcus and Simone became ill, someone matching your description was seen leaving Dr. Chen's car. I felt the walls closing in, but forced myself to remain calm. Detective, I was at the hospital that night visiting Dr. Chen. She was upset about discovering my poisoning, and I went to comfort her. What exactly did you discuss during that visit? She was angry about what Marcus and Simone were doing to me. She kept saying someone should make them pay. Did you encourage her to take action? This was the moment of truth. I could continue the charade and hope the evidence wasn't strong enough, or I could take control of the narrative. I chose control. Detective, may I ask you something? Go ahead. If someone had been slowly murdering your mother for 10 months, What would you want done to them? I'd want them prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But what if the law wasn't fast enough? What if your mother was going to die in 3 weeks while the legal system took months to build a case? Detective Martinez studied my face carefully. Mrs. Hayes, what are you telling me? I sat down and folded my hands in my lap, making a decision that would either free me or destroy me. Detective, I'm telling you that sometimes justice requires immediate action. Are you confessing to poisoning your husband and daughter? I'm confessing to giving them exactly what they were giving me. Detective Martinez turned on her recording device. Mrs. Hayes, I need to formally advise you of your rights before we continue this conversation. After she read me my Miranda rights, I told her everything. Marcus and Simone spent 10 months slowly killing me. They documented every dose of poison, planned my funeral, and calculated how to split my inheritance. They were going to watch me die a slow, agonizing death in 3 weeks. So you decided to poison them first? I decided to give them a preview of what they were planning to do to me. Using your medical knowledge to obtain restricted compounds? Using my medical knowledge to ensure they experienced appropriate consequences for their crimes. Mrs. Hayes, that's premeditated attempted murder. Detective, that's justice. Detective Martinez leaned back in her chair. Mrs. Hayes, I have to ask, do you feel any remorse for what you did? I thought about Marcus lying brain-damaged in a hospital bed, and Simone facing a lifetime of dialysis and prison. Do you know what I feel, Detective? Tell me. Relief. For the first time in 10 months, I can eat food without wondering if it's going to kill me. I can drink coffee without analyzing every symptom I experience afterward. I can sleep at night without worrying about waking up dead. But you nearly killed 2 people. 2 people who were actively killing me. The only difference is that I acted faster. Mrs. Hayes, the law doesn't recognize vigilante justice. Then maybe the law needs to be changed. Detective Martinez made notes for several minutes before speaking again. Mrs. Hayes, there's something else we need to discuss. The investigation into Marcus's background has revealed some disturbing information. What kind of information? We've identified 3 other women who died under suspicious circumstances after marrying Marcus Hayes. I sat forward with interest. 3 other women? 3 other wealthy widows who developed mysterious illnesses and died within a year of marrying him. So I was right about him being a serial killer? It appears so. And in each case, there was a young woman close to the victims who had medical knowledge and access to their food and medications. Simone wasn't his first accomplice? No. We believe Marcus has been using different accomplices for years, targeting wealthy older women through their children or caregivers. This news hit me like a physical blow. Not only had Simone betrayed me, but she was part of a larger criminal conspiracy that had murdered multiple women. Detective, how many women are we talking about total? Possibly as many as 7 over the past 8 years. 7 women. Marcus and Simone had been part of a murder spree that had killed 7 innocent people. Mrs. Hayes, this information changes the dynamic of your case significantly. How so? You weren't just defending yourself against attempted murder. You were potentially stopping serial killers from claiming more victims. I felt a surge of vindication. So what I did was justified? What you did was still illegal. But it's possible that your actions saved lives. What happens now? Now we have to determine whether you'll be charged with attempted murder or whether this case falls under self-defense statutes. What would self-defense require? Imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm. Given that Marcus and Simone were planning to kill you within 3 weeks, and given their history of murdering other women, a jury might find your actions justifiable. The conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Detective Martinez answered it and found Dr. Roberts from the hospital. Detective, I need to update you on the condition of the victims. What's their status? Marcus Hayes has awakened from his coma, but with severe cognitive impairment. He's asking to speak with his wife. Detective Martinez looked at me. Are you willing to see him? I thought about facing the man who had tried to murder me, now reduced to a brain-damaged shell of his former self. Yes, I want to hear what he has to say. At the hospital, they brought me to Marcus's room. He was awake but clearly struggling with basic cognitive functions. "Vanessa," he said weakly when he saw me. "Hello, Marcus. What happened to me?" I sat down beside his bed, Detective Martinez positioned where she could record our conversation. "You were poisoned, Marcus, just like you were poisoning me." His eyes showed confusion and fear. "I don't understand. Do you remember giving me arsenic in my coffee every morning for 10 months? "Arsenic? No, I would never." "Do you remember planning my murder with Simone?" "Murder? Vanessa, I love you. Why would I murder you?" I looked at this man who had spent nearly a year slowly killing me, now so brain-damaged that he couldn't remember his own crimes. "Marcus, do you remember your previous wives?" "Previous wives?" "The women you killed before me. Sarah, Jennifer, Patricia." I can't remember." Detective Martinez stepped forward. "Mr. Hayes, we have evidence that you've been murdering wealthy women for money for the past 8 years. That's not true. I'm not a killer. We have documentation showing you and your accomplices planning these murders systematically." Marcus looked at me with genuine confusion and fear. "Vanessa, please tell them I'm not a murderer. Tell them I love you." I stared at this pathetic, brain-damaged man who had been hours away from becoming my killer. "Marcus, the only reason you're not a murderer is because I stopped you first." "Stopped me from what?" "From killing me and collecting my $3 million inheritance. I don't care about your money. I only care about you." The brain damage had apparently erased his memories of the murder conspiracy, leaving him with only confused fragments of affection. "Mrs. Hayes," Detective Martinez said quietly, "he genuinely seems to have no memory of the crimes. Does that change anything legally?" "It means he may not be competent to stand trial. He could spend the rest of his life in a medical facility instead of prison." I looked at Marcus, who was staring at me with the confused love of a man who couldn't remember trying to kill me. "Detective, I want to see Simone now." Simone's room was across the hall. Unlike Marcus, she was fully conscious and aware of everything that had happened. "Mom," she said weakly when I entered. "I'm so sorry." "Are you sorry you tried to kill me, or sorry you got caught?" "I'm sorry for everything. I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did hurt me, Simone. For 10 months, you slowly poisoned me while pretending to care about my health. Marcus convinced me it was the only way." "Don't blame Marcus. You made your own choices." Detective Martinez stepped forward. "Miss Washington, we have evidence linking you to the murders of at least 6 other women." Simone's face went white. "6 other women? You've been working with Marcus Hayes to poison wealthy widows for the past 4 years." "That's not true. This was the first time." "We have documentation showing similar poison purchases dating back to 2019. I watched as Simone realized the full scope of what she'd been involved in. "Mom, I swear, I thought this was just about us needing money. I didn't know Marcus had done this before." "So you're claiming you're just an innocent pharmacy technician who accidentally became a serial killer?" "I made terrible mistakes, but I'm not a serial killer." Detective Martinez showed Simone evidence of her involvement in the previous murders. "Miss Washington, your credit card was used to purchase the same poison compounds in 4 different states over the past 3 years. That's impossible. Marcus used your credit cards to buy materials for murdering other women. You weren't just his accomplice in trying to kill your mother. You were his accomplice in multiple murders." Simone stared at the evidence, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I didn't know. I thought Marcus loved you. I thought we just needed help with money." "Simone, you introduced me to a serial killer and helped him try to murder me. Whether you knew about his other crimes or not, you're still responsible for what you did to me. Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at my daughter, my only child, who had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. "Simone, you spent 10 months watching me get sicker and weaker, knowing you were causing it. You held my hand while you were slowly killing me. I know it was wrong. You documented my symptoms like I was a lab rat. You calculated how much poison to give me to maximize my suffering while minimizing suspicion. Mom, please. You planned my funeral while serving me dinner." Simone broke down completely, sobbing with the knowledge of what she had done and what it was going to cost her. "What's going to happen to me?" Detective Martinez answered. "Even if you weren't aware of the previous murders, you're facing conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, and fraud. You're looking at 25 to life." 25 to life? Plus, you'll need dialysis 3 times a week for the rest of your life because of the kidney damage. I stood up, looking down at my daughter, who would spend the rest of her life paying for betraying me. "Simone, I want you to understand something." "What?" "Every time you're hooked to that dialysis machine, I want you to remember that you brought this on yourself." "Mom, I love you." "You don't love me. You loved my money. There's a difference." As I walked out of Simone's room, she called after me desperately. "Mom, please don't leave me like this." I turned back one last time. "You left me to die slowly and alone, Simone. Now you get to live slowly and alone." In the hallway, Detective Martinez caught up with me. "Mrs. Hayes, based on what we've discovered about Marcus and Simone's criminal history, the district attorney is willing to offer you a plea deal." "What kind of plea deal?" "Plead guilty to assault with a deadly weapon, serve 2 years of house arrest, and testify against them in their murder trials." "What if I don't take the deal?" "Then you face attempted murder charges and could get 15 to 20 years. I thought about spending the rest of my life in prison for stopping 2 serial killers." "Detective, I'll take the deal. You're making the right choice." As we left the hospital, I realized that my confrontation with Marcus and Simone had given me something I hadn't expected: closure. They were both going to spend the rest of their lives paying for their crimes. Marcus would live as a brain-damaged patient in a secure facility, never understanding why he was there. Simone would spend decades in prison, connected to a dialysis machine, remembering every detail of how she'd betrayed her own mother. And I would serve 2 years of house arrest in the $3 million home they had tried to steal from me. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. Sometimes it's about making sure the criminals face consequences that match their crimes. Marcus and Simone had tried to kill me slowly. Now they would pay slowly, for the rest of their lives. The trial began 6 months later, and it became the most sensational criminal case in our city's history. The media dubbed it the Black Widow Murders, focusing on how Marcus had systematically targeted and killed wealthy widows with help from medical accomplices. I testified as the prosecution's star witness, describing in detail how Marcus and Simone had slowly poisoned me while planning to steal my inheritance. "Mrs. Hayes," the prosecutor asked, "can you describe the moment you realized your husband and daughter were trying to kill you?" When Dr. Chen showed me the test results proving arsenic poisoning, my first reaction was disbelief. These were people I loved and trusted. The idea that they were murdering me was almost impossible to accept. "What convinced you they were responsible?" "The timeline. I'd been sick for exactly as long as I'd been married to Marcus, and Simone's pharmacy receipts showed she'd been buying medications to mask arsenic symptoms for months. How did that make you feel?" "Betrayed, terrified, and then, honestly, angry. Angry enough to take revenge, angry enough to want justice." The defense attorney, a sharp woman named Linda Morrison, cross-examined me aggressively. "Mrs. Hayes, isn't it true that you used your medical knowledge to obtain restricted compounds?" "Yes. And you used those compounds to deliberately poison your husband and daughter?" "I gave them a taste of what they were giving me." "With the intent to cause serious bodily harm?" "With the intent to stop them from murdering me." "But you could have simply left. You could have divorced your husband and cut contact with your daughter." "I could have. But then they would have found other victims." "So you took it upon yourself to be judge, jury, and executioner?" "I took it upon myself to ensure they faced consequences for their crimes." "Mrs. Hayes, do you consider yourself above the law?" I paused, looking directly at the jury. "I consider myself a woman who refused to die quietly while criminals profited from my murder." The courtroom fell silent. "Your Honor," Defense Attorney Morrison continued, "this witness has admitted to premeditated attempted murder." "Objection," the prosecutor called out. "Mrs. Hayes is testifying under a plea agreement." "Sustained," the judge ruled. The defense attorney tried a different approach. "Mrs. Hayes, you've admitted that you felt no remorse for poisoning your husband and daughter. Doesn't that concern you? What concerns me is that 7 women are dead because Marcus Hayes and his accomplices were never stopped. But you're not law enforcement. No, I'm a woman who survived what 7 other women didn't survive, and I made sure Marcus and Simone couldn't kill anyone else. By taking the law into your own hands. By defending myself when the law couldn't protect me fast enough. The jury was clearly moved by my testimony. Several women were crying, and the men looked angry at the defense attorney for attacking me. When Marcus took the stand, his brain damage was obvious to everyone in the courtroom. Mr. Hayes, his own defense attorney, asked gently, "Do you remember being married to Vanessa Washington?" "Yes, I love Vanessa. She's a wonderful woman." "Do you remember giving her any medications or substances?" "No, I would never hurt Vanessa." "Do you remember planning to inherit her money?" "I don't care about money. I only care about Vanessa." It was heartbreaking and infuriating to watch. The brain damage had erased Marcus's memories of his crimes, leaving only confused fragments of affection. The prosecutor cross-examined him carefully. "Mr. Hayes, do you remember Sarah Mitchell?" "No." "Jennifer Davis?" "No." "Patricia Williams?" "No. These were women you married and then killed for their money." "I've never killed anyone." "Mr. Hayes, we have documentation showing you researched their assets before targeting them." "I don't remember." The prosecutor showed him evidence of his crimes, the forged documents, the poison purchases, the inheritance research. "Mr. Hayes, does any of this look familiar?" Marcus studied the papers with obvious confusion. "I don't understand what this is." "This is evidence that you're a serial killer who murdered 7 women for money." "That's not true. I'm not a killer." The jury watched this exchange with fascination and horror. Here was a man who had committed multiple murders but couldn't remember any of them. When Simone testified, the contrast was stark. She remembered everything. "Miss Washington," the prosecutor asked, "did you help Marcus Hayes plan your mother's murder?" "Yes." "Did you administer poison to your mother on multiple occasions?" "Yes." "Did you know that your mother was dying from this poison?" "Yes." "Did you research how to split her inheritance with Marcus Hayes?" "Yes." "Miss Washington, why did you decide to kill your mother?" Simone broke down crying. "We needed money. Marcus said it was the only way. I thought it would be quick." "But it wasn't quick, was it?" "No, it took months. Mom got sicker and sicker, and I had to watch her suffer." "Did that make you want to stop?" "Sometimes. But Marcus said we were too far along to quit." "Miss Washington, did you know that Marcus had killed other women before your mother?" "Not until after we were arrested." "I thought this was the first time." "But you continued poisoning your mother even when you suspected she might die." "Yes." "Why?" "Because I was scared of going to prison if we got caught, and scared of being poor if we stopped." "So you chose to murder your mother rather than face the consequences of your choices?" "Yes." The jury's disgust was palpable. Even Marcus's brain damage evoked some sympathy, but Simone's cold calculation made her irredeemable. During closing arguments, the prosecutor painted a clear picture. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Marcus Hayes and Simone Washington are serial killers who targeted vulnerable women for financial gain. They murdered at least 7 women over 8 years, and they were 3 weeks away from murdering an 8th when Dr. Vanessa Washington fought back. The defense will argue that Dr. Washington took the law into her own hands. But I ask you to consider this. If Dr. Washington hadn't stopped them, how many more women would be dead today? Marcus Hayes may not remember his crimes due to brain damage, but the evidence shows clearly that he was a predator who used charm and false love to get close to wealthy widows before murdering them. Simone Washington may claim she was manipulated by Marcus, but she made conscious choices every day for 10 months. She watched her own mother suffer and chose to continue poisoning her rather than face the consequences of her crimes. These defendants are not victims. They are criminals who got caught because their intended victim was smarter, stronger, and more resourceful than they expected. The defense's closing argument was weaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, Our justice system is built on the principle that we don't take the law into our own hands. Dr. Washington admits she poisoned her husband and daughter with intent to cause serious harm. While we sympathize with her situation, vigilante justice is still justice. She had options. She could have left, called police, sought protection. Instead, she chose revenge. Marcus Hayes is clearly not competent to stand trial due to brain damage. He cannot remember the crimes he's accused of, let alone assist in his own defense. Simone Washington was a young woman manipulated by an older, experienced criminal. While her choices were wrong, they were made under duress and coercion. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood to read the verdict. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, we find Marcus Hayes guilty. Marcus stared blankly, clearly not understanding what was happening. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, we find Simone Washington guilty. Simone collapsed in her chair, sobbing. On the charges of murder in the first degree for the deaths of Sarah Mitchell, Jennifer Davis, Patricia Williams, Maria Santos, Katherine Johnson, and Rebecca Thompson, we find Marcus Hayes guilty on all counts. 6 murder convictions. Marcus was going to die in prison, even if he couldn't understand why. On the charges of conspiracy to commit murder in the deaths of the aforementioned victims, we find Simone Washington guilty on all counts. 7 life sentences for Simone. She would never see the outside of a prison cell again. As the judge read the sentencing, I felt a deep satisfaction. Marcus Hayes was sentenced to death, though he would likely die of his medical conditions before the state could execute him. Simone Washington was sentenced to life without parole, plus an additional 100 years. They were both ordered to pay restitution to the victims' families, though they would never have the money to pay. After the sentencing, reporters surrounded me as I left the courthouse. Dr. Washington, how do you feel about the verdicts? I feel that justice has been served. Do you have any regrets about poisoning your husband and daughter? My only regret is that 7 other women had to die before someone stopped Marcus Hayes. Would you do it again if you had to? I looked directly into the camera. If someone is trying to murder you, you have the right to defend yourself. I exercise that right, and I'm alive because of it. What's your message to other potential victims of elder abuse? Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate it. Don't let anyone convince you that you're being paranoid. And if they find themselves in a situation like yours, fight back. The law isn't always fast enough to save your life, but your intelligence and courage might be. As I walked away from the courthouse, I felt the weight of the past year lifting from my shoulders. Marcus and Simone were going to spend the rest of their lives paying for their crimes. And I was going to spend the rest of mine living freely in the home they had tried to steal from me. The doctor's note that said, "Don't go home, run," had saved my life. But I had saved my own soul by making sure my would-be killers faced justice. Sometimes the best revenge isn't running away from danger. Sometimes it's making sure the danger can never hurt anyone else again. 2 years later, I was sitting in my garden enjoying the morning coffee that Marcus had once laced with arsenic, when I received a call that brought the final chapter of my revenge to completion. Dr. Washington? This is Warden Patricia Collins from Millfield Correctional Facility. Yes? I'm calling about Simone Washington. She's requested to see you. My daughter wants to see me? She's been asking for months. She says she has something important to tell you before... Before what? Dr. Washington, your daughter is dying. I set down my coffee cup, processing this unexpected news. Dying of what? Kidney failure. The damage from the poisoning has progressed despite dialysis. She has maybe 2 weeks left. 2 weeks. The same amount of time Marcus and Simone had planned to give me before my death. Does she want me to visit her in prison? She wants you to consider allowing her to die at home, under hospice care. At home? It's a compassionate release program for terminally ill inmates who pose no flight risk. She would need a family member to serve as her caregiver. I almost laughed at the irony. Simone wanted me to care for her in her final days, after spending 10 months trying to kill me. Warden Collins, why would I agree to that? She says she has information about other victims that could help solve cold cases, but she'll only share it with you privately. More victims. Even facing death, Simone was still revealing the true scope of Marcus's crimes. I'll think about it. Dr. Washington, I should mention, your daughter's condition is quite bad. If you're going to see her, it should be soon. That afternoon, I drove to Millfield Correctional Facility for the first time in 2 years. The woman they brought to the visitor's room looked nothing like the daughter I remembered. Prison had aged Simone dramatically, but the kidney failure had destroyed her. She was gaunt, gray-skinned, and moved with the painful slowness of someone whose body was shutting down. "Mom," she said weakly as she sat across from me. "Thank you for coming. The warden said you have information about other victims." "I do. But first, I need to tell you something else." "What?" "I'm dying because of what you did to me 2 years ago." I stared at my daughter without sympathy. "You're dying because of what you did to yourself, Simone. The poison you gave me destroyed my kidneys. The poison I gave you was a fraction of what you gave me over 10 months. But it's still going to kill me, just like the arsenic you fed me was going to kill me." Simone was quiet for a moment, then pulled out a folder of papers. "Mom, there were more victims than we told the police." "How many more?" 12 additional women over the past 15 years. 12 more victims. Marcus and Simone had been part of a murder conspiracy that had killed 19 women total. "Why didn't you tell the police this during the trial?" "Because I was hoping to use it as leverage for a reduced sentence. But that's not going to matter now." I looked through the papers, names, dates, methods of murder, and locations spanning multiple states. "Simone, why are you telling me this now?" "Because I want you to know that stopping Marcus and me saved lives. If we hadn't been caught, we would have kept killing women for years." "I already knew that. But I want you to know specifically how many lives you saved." She showed me a list of potential targets they had been researching when I discovered the poisoning. "These are women we were planning to target next. Wealthy widows in their 60s and 70s, all with adult children who could serve as accomplices." I counted 8 names on the list. "So by stopping you, I potentially saved 8 more women from being murdered?" "At least 8. Marcus was expanding the operation. He was training other people to identify and target victims. The scope of Marcus's criminal enterprise was even more massive than anyone had realized. "Simone, why should I take care of you during your final weeks?" "Because you're my mother. You tried to murder your mother." "I know. And I've spent every day of the past 2 years thinking about what I did to you. And what conclusion did you reach? That I deserve everything that's happening to me." I studied Simone's face, looking for signs of manipulation or false remorse. "If you believe you deserve this, why do you want compassionate release?" "Because I want to die in the house where I grew up, not in a prison infirmary. The house you tried to steal from me. The house where you raised me to be a better person than I turned out to be." "Simone, you're asking me to spend my final memories of you watching you die slowly. Like you watched me get sick from the arsenic?" "Yes, exactly like that." Simone nodded slowly. "Maybe that's fitting. I made my decision. I'll take custody of you for your final 2 weeks." "Really?" "On one condition." "What condition?" "You're going to help me contact the families of every woman Marcus murdered. You're going to tell them exactly what happened to their loved ones. That will be painful for them. Not as painful as not knowing. These families have been wondering for years what happened to their mothers, wives, and sisters. Some of them might hate me. All of them should hate you. Why would you want to put me through that? Because facing your victims' families is part of paying for what you did." Simone agreed to my terms, and within a week she was transferred to hospice care in my home. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was caring for my daughter in the same room where she had served me poisoned meals twice a week for 10 months, but I wasn't caring for her out of forgiveness or maternal love. I was giving her the chance to make amends before she died. Over the next 10 days, we contacted 19 families. Each conversation was heartbreaking. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Dr. I. Vanessa Washington. I'm calling about your mother Sarah's death 5 years ago. What about my mother? The police said she died of natural causes. Your mother was murdered by my former husband Marcus Hayes and my daughter Simone Washington. Murdered? How? Slowly poisoned with arsenic over the course of several months. The silence that followed was deafening. Why are you telling me this now? Because my daughter is dying, and she wants to confess to her crimes before she passes. Can I speak to her? I handed the phone to Simone. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Simone Washington. I helped Marcus kill your mother. Why? For money. We wanted to inherit her assets. My mother trusted you people. I know. We betrayed that trust, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back. No, it doesn't. But I want you to know that we've been caught, and we're both paying for what we did. Similar conversations happened with 18 other families. Some hung up immediately. Others screamed at Simone through the phone. A few listened quietly and then asked detailed questions about how their loved ones had died. All of them deserved to know the truth. By the end of the week, Simone could barely stay conscious for more than an hour at a time. Mom, she whispered one evening as I adjusted her medication, do you think those families feel better knowing what happened? I think they feel better knowing their loved ones didn't suffer alone and forgotten. Do you think they'll ever forgive me? That's not for me to decide. Do you forgive me? I looked at my daughter, my only child who was dying from the consequences of trying to murder me. Simone, forgiveness requires trust. I can never trust you again. But do you forgive me? I forgive the daughter I raised. I don't forgive the woman who tried to kill me. What's the difference? The daughter I raised would never have betrayed her family for money. The woman who tried to kill me isn't my daughter. She's a criminal who shares my DNA. Simone closed her eyes, too weak to argue. 3 days later, she slipped into unconsciousness. I sat beside her bed, watching her vital signs decline, thinking about everything that had brought us to this moment. 2 years ago, Simone had been a healthy 26-year-old woman with her entire life ahead of her. Her choices had led her to die at 28, in prison clothes, with destroyed kidneys, and the weight of 19 murders on her conscience. Meanwhile, I was healthier and happier than I'd been in years, living independently in my own home, surrounded by friends who respected me and a community that saw me as a survivor. The final reversal of fortune was complete. On Simone's last night, she briefly regained consciousness. Mom, I'm here. I want you to know. I really did love you. I know you did, but love without loyalty isn't enough. If you could go back and change what you did to Marcus and me, would you? I thought about that question carefully. No, Simone, I'd do it again. Even knowing I'd die from it? Even knowing you'd die from it. Why? Because stopping you saved innocent lives. Your death is the price you paid for trying to commit murder. Do you think I'm going to hell? I think you're going to face judgment for 19 murders and the betrayal of your own mother. Are you going to hell for killing me? I didn't kill you, Simone. I defended myself against someone who was trying to kill me. But you're the reason I'm dying. You're the reason you're dying. I just accelerated the consequences of your choices. Simone died at 3:47 a.m. the next morning. I sat with her body until the hospice nurse arrived, then made the calls to arrange her burial. At her funeral, I was the only person in attendance besides the priest. None of the victims' families came, though several sent flowers with notes like, "Justice has been served," and "She got what she deserved." As they lowered Simone's casket into the ground, I felt a deep sense of closure. The woman who had tried to murder me was dead. The man who had orchestrated her crimes was brain damaged and dying in a secure medical facility. And I was alive, healthy, and free to enjoy the life they had tried to steal from me. 6 months later, I received a call from Detective Martinez with the final news about Marcus. Dr. Washington, Marcus Hayes died this morning. How? Complications from the brain damage. His organs shut down during the night. Was he conscious at the end? No. He never regained full awareness after the poisoning. He died not understanding why he was in custody or what he'd done. Good. Dr. Washington, with both perpetrators deceased, The case files will be closed. What about the other victims' families? They've all been notified. Many of them have expressed gratitude that you brought Marcus and Simone to justice. I didn't bring them to justice, Detective. I brought justice to them. What's the difference? The system would have given them trials, appeals, and years of legal proceedings. I gave them immediate consequences for their actions. And you're satisfied with how everything turned out? I'm satisfied that Marcus Hayes and Simone Washington can never hurt anyone else again. As I hung up the phone, I walked through my house, the house they had tried to steal, where I still lived independently at 64. In my study, I kept a framed photo of myself with the other survivors from Marcus's criminal enterprise. We had formed a support group for families affected by his crimes. Next to it was the prescription pad where Dr. Chen had written, "Don't go home, run." I had kept it as a reminder that sometimes the best advice is the advice you don't take. I didn't run from Marcus and Simone. I turned and fought, and I won. The doctor's note had saved my life, but my own courage and intelligence had saved my soul. Some people might call what I did murder. I call it justice. And justice, served correctly, tastes sweeter than any revenge. 5 years after Simone's death, I was giving a lecture at the Metropolitan Hospital Nursing Conference when a young woman approached me afterward. "Dr. Washington, I'm Detective Lisa Chen with the FBI's Elder Abuse Task Force. Your case has become a model for how we investigate systematic poisoning." "How so?" "The documentation you provided and the methods you used to expose Marcus and Simone have helped us identify and stop 12 other similar operations across the country. 12 other operations. My fight against Marcus and Simone had created a ripple effect that protected countless other potential victims. Detective Chen, how many lives do you estimate were saved? Conservatively? Over 50 elderly victims who were being targeted by similar criminal enterprises. 50 lives. By refusing to run when Dr. Chen told me to, I had potentially saved 50 other families from experiencing what I went through. Dr. Washington, we'd like to offer you a consulting position with the task force. What would that involve? Teaching other medical professionals how to recognize the signs of systematic poisoning and helping law enforcement understand the medical aspects of these crimes. At 67 years old, I was being offered the chance to turn my trauma into a weapon against elder abuse. I accept. 6 months later, I published a book titled The Prescription Pad That Saved My Life, A Nurse's Guide to Recognizing and Surviving Elder Abuse. The book became a bestseller in the medical community and led to speaking engagements across the country. At each lecture, I told the same story. Trust your medical instincts, document everything, and don't be afraid to fight back when your life is threatened. Ladies and gentlemen, I would tell audiences of healthcare professionals, the most important thing you can do for elderly patients is take their concerns seriously, even when their families dismiss them. If I had been treated as a confused old woman when I reported feeling sick, Marcus and Simone would have succeeded in murdering me. But because Dr. Patricia Chen trusted my instincts and ran the right tests, 19 murders were exposed and countless future victims were protected. The most satisfying response came from a doctor in Phoenix who called me after my lecture there. "Dr. Washington, I heard your presentation last month. Yesterday, I had an elderly patient whose symptoms reminded me of your case. What did you find? Her son-in-law was poisoning her with antifreeze. We caught it in time because I remembered your story. How is she doing?" "She's alive and recovering. Her son-in-law is in custody." "Good. That's exactly why I tell this story." 2 years later, I received an honorary doctorate from the University Medical School for my contributions to elder abuse prevention. At the ceremony, they introduced me as the woman who turned attempted murder into a crusade for justice. In my acceptance speech, I looked out at an audience of medical students and practicing physicians. When I was your age, I thought my job as a nurse was to heal people and save lives. I never imagined I would someday have to save my own life from people who claim to love me. But life teaches us that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones closest to us. And sometimes the only person who can save you is yourself. The prescription pad that changed my life had 4 words: "Don't go home, run." But I learned that running isn't always the answer. Sometimes you have to stand your ground and fight for your life, your dignity, and your right to exist safely in the world. If my story teaches you anything, let it be this: trust your training, trust your instincts, and never let anyone convince you that you're too old, too weak, or too trusting to defend yourself. The audience gave me a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. After the ceremony, a young nursing student approached me. "Dr. Washington, I'm going into geriatric care. Your story has inspired me to specialize in elder abuse detection. What's your name?" "Sarah Chen. Dr. Patricia Chen is my aunt." I stared at this young woman, realizing that my story had come full circle. "Your aunt saved my life." "She says you saved your own life. She just gave you the information to do it. What does she think about you going into elder abuse detection?" "She says it's the most important work a medical professional can do." She's right. 10 years after the prescription pad incident, I was invited to testify before Congress about the need for stronger federal laws protecting elderly people from financial abuse. "Senators, my case demonstrates that our current legal system is too slow to protect elderly victims from systematic abuse," I told the Judiciary Committee. "By the time law enforcement builds a case against financial predators, the victims are often dead or too damaged to testify. We need laws that allow for immediate protective action when medical evidence shows systematic poisoning or abuse. We need mandatory reporting requirements for healthcare providers who suspect elder abuse. And we need resources for elderly people to defend themselves when the system fails to protect them fast enough." The committee passed the Washington Elder Protection Act, which created federal task forces to investigate systematic elder abuse and provided funding for victims to access legal and medical support. At 72 years old, I had become a national advocate for elder rights. My final victory came 5 years later when the FBI's Elder Abuse Task Force reported that systematic poisoning cases had decreased by 40% since implementing protocols based on my experience. "Dr. Washington," Detective Chen told me during our last meeting before my retirement from consulting, "your case has literally changed how we investigate these crimes. How many operations have been stopped using the Washington Protocol? 37 criminal enterprises involving over 200 potential victims, 200 lives. My refusal to run when danger threatened me had protected 200 other families from experiencing the betrayal I'd survived. Today, at 77 years old, I live independently in the same house Marcus tried to steal from me. Every morning, I make my own coffee in the kitchen where Simone used to poison my meals. Every evening, I sit in the garden that Marcus thought he would inherit after my murder. I am healthy, wealthy, and surrounded by people who value and respect me. The people who tried to kill me are dead, their reputations destroyed, their crimes exposed to the world. Marcus Hayes died brain-damaged and forgotten in a secure medical facility. Simone Washington died at 28, destroyed by the consequences of her own choices. Meanwhile, I have lived to see justice served not just in my case, but in hundreds of others. The prescription pad that saved my life sits framed on my desk, a reminder that sometimes the best advice is the advice you choose not to follow. Dr. Chen told me to run. Instead, I stayed and fought, and I won everything. My life, my dignity, my safety, and the satisfaction of knowing that my courage protected countless other innocent people from the fate Marcus and Simone had planned for me. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't running away from danger. Sometimes it's turning the danger back on the people who created it and watching them destroy themselves with their own poison.